you know you're straight and delusional if you ever thought these two were straight. And I would give context for why that's in my notes, but it's just more fun not to be honest. Like, it's just more fun to just say, yeah, you know, you're straight and delusional if you ever thought these two were straight. Like, also, okay, so tonight I just watched the end of season 2 again. I've literally watched like both seasons back to back like 12 times. I think I've mentioned this before because my mother and I just keep doing this thing where we'll like end one season, start the next, and then go back again. But I've been kind of skipping the very, very last scene of the final episode of season 2 because it's so heartbreaking. And I actually hurt myself more because I watched it again and I realized that right before Aziraphale says, I forgive you, he is so close to saying, I love you. Like, it's right on the tip of his tongue. And I'm just like, oh God, it's like, just twist the knife, Neil. Jesus. Why, Aziraphale? Why do you hurt me like this? I'm kind of glad there's not a Neil Funko Pop, because honestly, I'd be shaking the shit out of that one too. Hello, and welcome to Gay Omens. It's my Good Omens book review book of the book. It's a review of the book I'm Gay. It's a queer literary analysis. I think calling it analysis is like a generous term. Like, just me talking about the gay shit happening in this book. And shockingly, yet again, we're at another chapter where it's not as gay as it could be. But I am going to do an actual like review of this chapter just because, as much as I had fun like not doing a real review with the last chapter, I'm going to do an actual one this chapter. But there are a couple things we got to get out of the way first. What did I just say? I don't even know. There are a couple of things we've got to get out of the way first. If you have subscribed and you've watched my videos before, welcome back. Thank you so much. If you're new to this channel, I post new Good Omens videos every Tuesday, whether you like it or not. One of the things I wanted to talk about is the season 5 premiere of RuPaul's Drag Race UK. The episode is entitled Tickety Boo. RuPaul mentions that she just learned the word tickety boo and that it's going to be coming up a lot in this season. And I'm not saying that Ru watches Good Omens, but I am saying that I have watched a lot of British television and I've never heard the term come up in any other show but Good Omens. So maybe it comes up in Doctor Who. That's like the one thing I've never watched. But I'm pretty sure. So I'm not saying she watches the show, but I am just saying like anus thing is possible, as Alaska would say. Oh my God, why was my Rue just like, why was my laugh just like Rue's? We also have an update. The writer's strike is officially over. The writers got everything they wanted. Congratulations, I'm so happy. Obviously, we know SAG is still ongoing. There are still plenty of strikes going on throughout the country in various different forms. As I understand it, video game designer artists are also on strike. Marvel the Marvel animators of like CGI are trying to unionize themselves, which I think is great. So there's a lot of different people who are on strike right now, and I support all of them. I think that's amazing for all of them. But as far as this writer strike goes, that has officially ended. Neil has also said that he is working on season 3. Neil has said he was hired to write season 3, but they have not still officially announced and like made season 3 official with Amazon yet. I don't know if that's something that they're like wanting to see the script first before they sign off on it, or like how that works exactly. I'm hoping that Amazon will, you know, make season 3 a possibility. I think there's a lot of fans, including myself, that want it, and I think they know that it would be silly not to, but, you know, you never know. I'm cautiously optimistic is what I'm going to say. I'm very, very hopeful because, like Crowley, I am a positive, hopeful person that believes things will work out for the best. So, do not disappoint me, Amazon. That's all I gotta say. And I'm gonna keep talking about this regardless, so I'm gonna keep badgering you. So, you're not gonna get rid of me that easily, even if they don't do a season 3. But, and I know he has said he will do a book if they don't ever sign off on it, so, you know, we've got options either way. Okay, so if anybody is wanting, like, an actual review of the last chapter of the book, since I kind of, like, did that whole kind of jokey review where I was just like, there's nothing gay in this because they don't, you know, Aziraphale and Crowley aren't in it. But if anyone wants an actual review, basically it was the whole thing with them playing their Spanish Inquisition game, and then they run into Anathema, and it's like that whole scene. So it's not like it kind of introduces the idea of like Adam kind of learning these conspiracy theories and all of that, but generally speaking, like, it's not terribly interesting to me. Like, there wasn't really a lot going on. It's kind of funny because someone in my comments on, I think it was my last video or like one of my last videos, was like, season 1, like the whole thing for them was just the Aziraphale and Crowley relationship, and then everything else was kind of background noise. And I feel that way too. And I know that's like sacrilegious to say, especially as someone who did enjoy the book, but like, yeah, I would say, I don't know, reading this again with the context of the show and with the context of like their relationship and kind of all of that, it does kind of, I don't want to say it's not interesting reading the book again. You know, there's a lot of things that I don't care as much about. I know that sounds terrible, but like, I'm really interested and into it for Aziraphale and Crowley and like the gay shit. So like obviously that's the point of all of this. I get it. It's making a point. It's telling a story. It's all important because it's, you know, explaining why he ends up, you know, he's actually human because he's got friends and, you know, he's not kind of held in a different way like Warlock was. So that's why Warlock's kind of a little asshole. I do wish we got to see more of him just in general, like after they realize it's the wrong kid, because it's kind of like, oh, it's the wrong kid, and then you never see him again. I would love to see Adam and Warlock and like how they are as like teenagers in the 3rd installment of the show. Okay, so the first part of this chapter is basically Raven Sable doing his whole Chow thing and kind of getting to see all of that, and then he gets his scales. It's expanded more than it is in the show, but like for me, it's also more of the them and their conspiracy theories. Again, not that interesting to me, but finally, we get the line that I have been waiting for this entire book review, and it's my favorite line. I almost want it tattooed on my body. I love it so much. The first half. I don't like the second half, and I'm going to be ignoring that entirely because I don't care. But the first half of it is my favorite because I just think it's so brilliant. And I would really love to know, and I think I've said this before, I would love to know who is the one who devised this line. Was it Neil or was it Terry? Who is the one who came up with this description for Aziraphale? Because I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. And I'm going to read the line verbatim, even though you know what it is, because I have to. Many people meeting Aziraphale for the first time formed 3 impressions: that he was English, that he was intelligent, and that he was gayer than a tree full of monkeys on nitrous oxide. I love that line. I know it goes further. I know blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I know the line goes further. I don't care. I'm ignoring that part for my own selfish reasons. Support me in this! Because, like, it's such a funny line. It's so, like, top tier, such a good line. I don't know Terry well. I've not read a lot of his books, I'm sorry to say. I've been meaning to. It is on my list. And honestly, truly, I've not read a lot of Neil's work either besides this. Like, I own American Gods. I think I read 2 of the Sandman comics. I don't read as much as I should. And not original fiction anyway. I've read a lot of fan fiction as of late, but that's a whole other story. But we're not going to get into that. That's an entirely different video. But I will say this. I have read, I mean, if Good Omens is anything to go by for these 2 authors respectively, I would say this feels to me, just in my spirit, it feels like a Terry line. I don't know why, it just does. You can correct me if that's not the case. Again, I do wish that had been the show. I don't know why it wasn't. Maybe it was like in a deleted scene. Maybe Amazon felt like it wasn't necessary to keep in. I really couldn't say. I'd have to look at the script book to know if it was like one of the deleted scenes. And I am planning to kind of go through those deleted scenes at some point in a video. I think that'd be a lot of fun. It's such a good line and I love it so much. Even, I mean, to be honest with you, even the follow-up line, even though I don't like it, it's still fitting and it makes a lot of sense and it still works. I just don't like it as much as the other line, so. And what's actually funny is, like, when you actually read the line in context, it actually makes no sense in context. Like, because the context of it is Aziraphale is reading the Nice and Accurate Prophecies book, and he's basically, they're saying, like, he's, the only other person besides Agnes who knew the prophecies as well as Aziraphale can figure them out is Anathema. And the only reason is because he's got, 6,000 years of intelligence. So it out of, like, in the context of the story, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Out of the context, it's just fun. But, like, in context of the story and that scene, you're kind of like, that's a really weird place to put that line, but, like, whatever. And then, of course, I do really enjoy that, like, Aziraphale is reading so long and not moving so long that his cup of cocoa gets moldy and he gets a fine line of dust on him. I just find that to be such a hilarious concept. And it made me start thinking, like, who keeps dust off of Crowley when he sleeps for like 90 years? Then I was like, dust would never, ever dare to lay on Crowley. So that's what does it, clearly. Like, dust would never dare. You know what's really funny that I was thinking about? Adam specifically getting into, like, all these conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and then making them happen and making them real. And, like, I think it probably in the 90s that was, like, more amusing because a lot of this stuff was, like, more ridiculous and kind of out there, and most people didn't really believe in a lot of it. I would say that a lot of people, maybe believe in Atlantis. I don't know how many people believe in Atlantis, but a good number of people probably believe in Atlantis. A lot of the other stuff I feel like people don't generally believe in. But, like, nowadays, with the way things have gone so off the rails with the conspiracy theories that people believe, and, like, flat Earth being something that people, like, genuinely, earnestly believe, it kind of has become a thing where you're just like, I don't know, man, seeing this 11-year-old get really obsessed with conspiracy theories is more worrisome in 2023 than it probably was when the book originally came out. But maybe that's not true. Maybe it was always worrisome. But, like, I don't know, something about right now specifically, I'm just like, oh, I don't care for this. What I did really enjoy in this chapter, though, is we get to learn a little bit more about Newt that I didn't remember. Like, in the show, I think he's kind of, like, just very mealy-mouthed and kind of just, like, timid and quiet and to himself, and then, like, obviously can't work technology to save his life, which is still in the book. But we get to learn a little bit about him and, like, how he decided to become a witch finder, and, like, he was very curious about it. And then once he gets there, he finds that he kind of feels bad for Shadwell because he is, a little bit sad. And a lot of it racist. That's a whole other thing, which thankfully was not included in the show. I think Shadwell is not very likable in this chapter. In the book, I should say, as opposed to how he is in the show. And I get why you would change that. But what's interesting is, like, Newt in this, like, doesn't really believe in anything. He doesn't believe in witches. He doesn't believe in God, but he also doesn't have enough energy to be a full-blown atheist either, which I find really interesting. So he's kind of, like, agnostic, basically. You get this deeper understanding of this character that, like, obviously you can convey in a TV show with more time, but I think Neil kind of knew, like, people don't really care about this as much as they care about Aziraphale and Crowley. And I hate to say that because I know, like, he wrote these characters along with his good friend, so, like, I don't want to say that in, like, a discouraging way or disparaging way, but, like, Neil has been pretty straightforward about the fact that he knew people mostly were interested in Aziraphale and Crowley. And I think that may have always been true. It's happened in a few shows, really, where it's like a character is not the main... Oh, you know what it was? It was Hellraiser. So in the original film, and actually in the original, like, book, the Cenobites were not the main antagonist in Hellraiser. But when they made the movie, it kind of became a thing where Julia was supposed to be the main antagonist in the original book or the novella. But then in the movie, people kind of decided, yeah, everyone likes the Cenobites better, and so they became the primary antagonist. And as the, series went on, they became more and more the primary antagonist. And I think that happens a lot. Like, I remember, even though we don't like to talk about this show, Supernatural, Castiel was really only supposed to be in one episode, as far as I recall. But he was so popular and beloved, like, immediately, that they just kept bringing him back. And I think that's kind of the case here, where it feels like even though Aziraphale and Crowley kind of start out the book, and they feel like the most I wouldn't say they're kind of the main characters, but kind of not, because they're all like important characters in their own way. But I feel like because they're like the main characters and they're the characters that people latched onto the most, I think those are the characters that people want to see the most of. So that's probably always been true. And so I'm probably not alone in like anyone who has reread this book who's like, okay, let's get to the good stuff, as it were. Because I care in the sense that I'm reading this book and I do enjoy this book and it's well written and enjoyable and everything like that. But it's also like, I will say, I think the book's interpretation of how Aziraphale finds Adam is a little less interesting than how I think the show went about it. In the book, it's a little less interesting. He basically reads the prophecies and then it doesn't really explain how he comes to the conclusion, but he just ends up calling like information and asks them to give him every name in the phone book, and then it's like the third or fourth one that he realizes is Adam's, and it's got the 666, so that is included. I just think it's more visually interesting the way the show did it. So again, like I said, the whole Shadwell of it all, he's not a likable character in this book. We kind of see him be very racist in the way that he talks about people. And it's very uncomfortable to read. It doesn't age well. Again, there's a lot of things that I think, it's a 30-year-old book. A lot of things don't age well. Neil has very clearly said that a lot of things did not age well and he's not proud of them, but, you can't take it back, unfortunately. And, it is kind of funny that the justification in the book is like, well, he hates everyone. Like, that's such a 90s interpretation of racism that it's not even funny. Like, that is so much the way of like, well, they hate everyone equally, so it's fine. It's like, it's not really fine. Yeah, he's really not likable in the book. He is more likable in the show, and I understand why Neil decided to kind of like take that characteristic out of him, because it's not fun, it's not enjoyable, and if you want to have this character kind of get that love interest at the end, you really do have to make him somewhat likable and somewhat redeemable. And at least in the show, even if he's a little obnoxious, he's at least redeemable in a way that it's hard to really like him. In the book, we get to see Aziraphale calling Shadwell and asking him to look up Adam. What's funny is, like, in the book, it's a very one-sided conversation. We only really get to see Shadwell's side of it. We don't really get to hear what Aziraphale has to say at all. And I think that's kind of like a funny concept. And we don't even know it's him because he doesn't say it's him. The only way we know is because he calls him the Southern Pansy. But otherwise, like, we have no way of knowing who he's talking to. I think in the conspect? What was that word? I think in the context of the book, it makes more sense that he calls him a Southern Pansy because Aziraphale calls him Dear Boy, which is like his thing. I really need a Dear Boy count in this book because I would love to know how many times he says this, because it's quite a few. I also love that Crowley ends up calling him immediately thereafter, and Crowley is actually named as calling him, which is really weird. I don't know why Aziraphale, it's just like implied that he called Shadwell, but then Crowley is actually named as calling Shadwell. I don't know. But I do think it's funny that they're like same brain, and then I like that it's considered that he is on both, that Shadwell is on both of their rosters for like humans that they collaborate with on things. I just think that's really kind of funny. And then they both are like paying him. I mean, that's really all she wrote for this chapter. It was pretty straightforward, no pun intended. I was originally going to do 2 chapters combined. I was going to do the last 2 chapters combined, but as it so happens, this is really funny, the next chapter, chapter 5, is 260 pages according to my e-reader app. So that means that is basically half of the book is 1 chapter, which is Saturday, so it's the end of the world. I think in the show, this chapter will constitute episodes like 4, 5, and 6. But yeah, that's kind of all that I have to say about this chapter. Again, there wasn't a lot of gay shit that happened in it, just kind of like the 3rd chapter. If you enjoy this video, please feel free to like this video, comment down below, tell me your favorite thing. If you're reading this book along with me, which I know a lot of people are, tell me your favorite thing about this chapter. And of course, you can always subscribe to this channel. Please do. I love having you here. Again, I post new Good Omens videos every Tuesday, whether you like it or not. I'm going to keep talking about this for the foreseeable future. It's just my life now. So I hope you're going to join me. And if you do like this as well, you can also join my Patreon. That is patreon.com/NarcissaDeVille. That is my behind the scenes channel where I'm gonna have original special content that maybe will be Good Omens related, whatever you guys decide you want to see from that. And until next time, stay devilish and see you next Tuesday.